BQ speaks in vinyl cracks. Feel the drop, it takes you back. Heartbeats sync with dusty tracks. A sound attack, no plan, no map.
Yo, what's up, party people? It is your boy BQ. It's a negative BQ YouTube channel. It's been a hot minute since I've done any kind of reaction piece, opinion piece here on the channel. I've just kind of been reviewing the show for the most part, but I felt kind of inclined to talk about this one because we know that it's a new era for TNA. They're going into AMC. They're going into the new year, 2026. Like we expected changes. We expect some people to go, some people to come. I don't think anyone's shocked by seeing contracts run out at the end of the year. But the ones that have been kind of making their rounds right now, and it's all, it's reported by multiple sources. I've told people, so number one, we're going to talk Killer Kelly here. I've told people she's cool with Sean Sapp, so whatever is reported by Fightful regarding her is gospel. So I see that they're saying her contracts run out, blah blah blah, and people are like, oh, they're going to re-sign her. If there was negotiations, Fightful would tell you. I can tell you that right now. So I'm not expecting Killer Kelly back in any way. But I'm going to start with her here because she was the one that I thought, and I think a lot of people thought had a lot of potential in the knockouts division to really get to the top. They first brought her in years ago. It was the knockouts tag team title tournament. She teamed with, I forgot her name, Candice Michelle. Obviously, it's not Candice Michelle, it's Rockstar Spud's wife, but she really stood out. And a lot of people were saying, hey, bring her in. And I was told it was a visa issue. Maybe not. I don't know. That's just kind of what I was told. But they obviously eventually brought her in with a new look. And she really got over like immediately with the fans. The fans were into her. And obviously, what they did with her and Masha Slamovich was excellent. They had a great feud. It led to them becoming a tag team. It was one of the better written creative things they've probably done in a while. And the team was really, really over. At the time I was saying this is part of probably the best part of the show when they're on there, and they were very dominant. The problem was the Knockouts tag team division was a huge mess at the time. They never had opponents, or they had one opponent at a time, whatever. And they eventually dropped the titles to Spitfire, and it was very like unceremonious. Like the match was over very quickly, and the fans were like, "Well, she's pregnant, so that's why they had to roll her up quick. She was pregnant." I was told she was not pregnant in that match. I just know that something happened backstage, and I don't think it's meant to be public knowledge because I was just told something happened, and that was it. Like I was not given detail because I'm respectfully told when something's like private, they're not, I'll be told information they have no problem getting out there. But if it's private, they're not even going to tell me. And if Fightful hasn't put it out, then it's not meant to go out. But something happened backstage, and maybe she'll get on a podcast one day and talk about it. Who knows? But the whole MK Ultra thing, their whole run, it just fell off a cliff like immediately. It was just gone, And a lot of people were disappointed by that because again, they were very over. And I think everyone had very high hopes for her in particular. Because if you remember, even Masha fell off a cliff at that point. They just had to bring her back when they knew Jordan Grace was gone. They're like, oh shit, we got to push somebody, right? So I gotta say that I feel like you could tell in the past year or so that she was on her way out the door. They brought her back after she delivered and got in wrestling shape. She had a very, very brief feud with Masha. And it sucks because the two of them had a feud that you could revisit. You know what I'm saying? Like you could do it one year, you could do it the next, and people would have been into it. They had that kind of feud. But yeah, she came back and then she was gone again. And it was like every once in a while, if they needed to dust her off for a Knockouts #1 contender battle royal, whatever the hell. I think they brought her back with Rosemary briefly on Explosion, and she was doing Explosion where you could tell, like when she came out to the ring, I think it was for that Knockouts 4-way a couple months ago. She's just waving at the fans as she's come out, kind of like, hey, I've been gone. It's me. It was almost like out of character. it kind of came across like she's being professional, but she's checked out at the same time, you know. And I was always under the impression they were just, satisfying some dates for her. Obviously, not a lot of dates, but they were satisfying dates, or they probably rolled her over her contract. I don't know if that's true or not. I would assume they did, since she was, they probably put her on some kind of maternity leave or whatever, and they probably rolled over her contract. But if it just sucks because everybody did like her. She was over with the fan base, and I think we all saw her like wearing the title one day. But yeah, if Fightful has not said that she's renegotiating, she's not. There's all these fans again on Twitter. Oh no, she'll be back. Like if they're not saying, she's not. Okay, so it sucks for everybody who liked her, but I think the writing was on the wall, and we were expecting her to be gone. Moving on to the Rascals, I've um I've always been a little like critical of them, not because I'd like disliked any of them as wrestlers. I mean, I've constantly said Myron Reed is excellent. I have constantly said I was gonna say Trey Young. Trey Miguel should at one point probably should have been elevated to the main event scene. I know he's a smaller guy, but I think that he had a window where he was doing some heel work, and then after that, he kind of went back to a baby face. But he was by himself, and the character was progressing, and I think there was a window there, but they kind of always just kind of kept him in that X Division title scene. And then once Zach Wentz came back, it just went back to being the Rascals and the Treehouse, because his character grew quite a bit. But then they kind of, they went back to what worked and what they knew. And they had good matches with the Hardys and others, and held the belts. I was always kind of critical because I'm just critical of that style in general, and it's really not a shot at them, but just me being an old school dude. You know, when it's duck, dodge, dip, dive, and dodge all the time, I'm not super into it as a wrestling fan. But they entertained the audience for a long time. They were the group that you always put out when you needed to wake the crowd up and just to do some incredible stuff in the ring. And like Zach Wentz wasn't like my favorite in the group, you know what I mean? But he still did a very good job in the company for them. And Desmond Xavier, I never expected him to be signed. I thought they were just kind of bringing him in short term. But if you could like rewind the clock back to when Desmond Alexander debuted in TNA, that was back when they were trying to revitalize the X division, and they had an X division, but it was like Rockstar Spud, Braxton Sutter, Trevor Lee, who I find to be very overrated. They had guys who didn't really wrestle the style that the X division was built off, right? They brought Desmond Xavier in, and he had that, and everyone was very very excited for it, but they used them very very little. They would go months without him being on screen. They just didn't do a whole lot with him, even though he was very exciting and the people were into him and what he was doing. But, I would say the Rascals probably did everything they could do. TNA does not clearly doesn't see him outside of just being the Rascals tag team. Zachary Wentz once upon a time won the X Division Championship just to drop, just to take it over to NXT and then drop it right back. I thought was I don't know. I mean, who knows if he was cool with that? I think it's kind of makes someone look dumb. I think it's kind of disrespectful to the wrestler a little bit. Like, hey, we need you to just be a placeholder champion. But if you're a professional, maybe you accept that kind of booking. But the guys just never really got out the box as far as where their spot was on the card. They're just I'll go back to what I said. Trey Miguel had a window where they really could have done something with him as a singles guy. He did some real good heel work. But they just kind of stuck to them just being the Rascals. And you could tell, for me, the writing was on the wall that they were it's being reported they weren't offered a new deal. But the writing was on the wall because over the last several months, it was like they were just wrestling each other. That happened multiple times. They it was like, okay, let's put him first to order four. Let's put him versus system. It seemed like they were getting all the stable matches, the 4-on-4 matches out of the way. and it was happening very quickly. There was like no real story to it. There was, nothing building over time. You could just kind of feel they were just getting that stuff out of the way. So I really thought their time was done, but I think they've done everything they can do. And if they go to AEW as a group, they will fit in very, very well there. They will have fresh opponents, and they'll probably be able to do a style that they really want to do that they can't necessarily always do in TNA. So, yeah, best of luck to those guys. Myron Reach should have been signed. They just never did. Who knows why? But that is a dude that he had that great match with Leon Slater, and it was so good that they should have elevated him. But instead, they before he could even roll out of the ring, they showed Javon Evans on the big screen challenging Leon Slater. And then they just forgot about him. But you know, goodbye the Rascals. They had a great run. It's time for them to do something different. I don't think uh WWE or NXT, I should say, is an option. AEW is actually a great home for them. And then moving on to Jake something, we've seen him as Jake Doyle. He popped up on AEW, and everyone's always like, "Oh, they dropped the ball with Jake something." No, they didn't. No, they didn't. That window closed so long ago, and I was just like anyone else, like, "Hey, do something with this guy. Do something with this guy." There was a period of time where I said, "Yo, elevate the dude," and it almost seemed like it was going to happen at one point. Like it was very start and stop with him. And I will say, so that I'm not contradicting myself, because years and years and years ago, when people were complaining about Alicia Edwards, and I said, well, they haven't actually given her anything to do. They just bring her on as a jobber. And when she needs to be Eddie Edwards' wife in an angle, she does that. But they didn't give her any feuds, any stories, nothing for years. They didn't do that for Jake either. And if you don't receive storylines, what can you do? You're just going out there and wrestling, right? So, and that's all he ever was in this company. He was cousin Jake, obviously, for a little bit. There were some stories there, but once he became Jake something, you're thinking this like breakout was going to happen, and it just never did. And again, if you don't write for the dude, I mean, what can he do? But at the same time, I think we can assume it's safe to assume that TNA is a collaborative company with the company and the creative and the wrestler. And with that being said, what did he do? I didn't see that with him as a fan, as a viewer. I mean, for years, right? I talked about this on the show. They would announce him coming out to the ring. They wouldn't even say where he's from. He's like, and next up, Jake something. I mean, the most plain entrance that you can have, along with the most plain name that you can have, and really the most plain matches you can have, because the wrestling didn't really mean anything because it never led to anything. It was almost like similar to what I said with Killer Kelly. They just kind of got to dust them off every once in a while because they need some kind of X Division multi-man match or something. But I just don't think he had like maybe they just didn't see the charisma. I didn't see it personally, but I was, when they first signed him, I was excited because when I lived in Illinois, every single independent show I ever went to, Jake something was on. So I knew who he was before they ever brought him in. I was like, hey, this guy's got a good body. He can wrestle. He had longer hair at the time. I thought was a better look for him than the short hair. But I was like, I'm kind of into it. And when they brought him on, I was like, let's see what he can do. Like, and it just never got there. And the reason I say, well, they didn't drop the ball is because, again, I asked the question, what did he do? Everything was plain. He never wore clothes. Like he was walking around backstage like he was prepared to wrestle. That's why I called him Naked Jake. Like he just never seemed to have clothes on. He just seemed like his gimmick was wrestler, default wrestler. You know what I mean? It just, for me, nothing ever clicked. He he would turn heel and he would still say, "What's my name?" and get the crowd, and that's not get the crowd pumped and everything, and that's not a heel thing. So I just think there was too many holes, and he just didn't fit for TNA. Like maybe he will work in the Don Callis family. Maybe it will. I hope it does for him, but something about being in TNA just did not click. I don't know if people didn't like him. I don't know if creative just really struggled to find something for him, but I also feel like I wonder what did he pitch? You know what I mean? Because I just didn't see you can see when a wrestler is trying new things out there, and I just didn't see that with him. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not backstage. I don't have a clue, but I as a fan did not feel that he was doing enough on his part. Maybe he was checked out. Like his contract was in and out. You know what I mean? I know he took time off for a while because dealing with the loss of his father, and that's totally understandable. And he made a Facebook or excuse me, an X post about it, where you could see his mind was just not in a good place for a while. And I'm sure that that played a huge role at one point. At one point, you know. But if we're just talking about the overall body of work, great matches, but clearly they were never going to get behind him. So as a fan now, I'm like, just let the guy go do something else. Give someone else that spot, and let's just try something new because they kept, it was just in and out, in and out. Like I would love to know that story one day. Why was it always like start, stop with this guy? But no, but at the same time, no real story to sink your teeth into. So that's all I've got for you guys. And AMC debut tomorrow. We'll be reviewing the show, talking about it one time for your mind. I'm your boy, BQ. It is the Negative BQ YouTube channel, and I'm out. Peace.